I might disagree. I'm gonna say it's still gotta be the most important because hungry people riot uncontrollably. So at least for now, while this number of people remains, that is gonna be food priority for that, but as you can see with the digital rationing cards and the direction we're going, food's gonna be tightly controlled.
Right.
Just saying, which dovetails right into what you were talking about.
And would you trust if there was a food shortage or a supply chain disruption, can you trust real human drivers to get there to the place that they're going, without getting robbed or maybe making a deal with somebody or maybe even just driving the food to a second seller on the black market and say that they got robbed? And they have an answer for this, and it's to switch over this whole infrastructure to remove people out of the equation. And when you start thinking about stuff like this,
It is conscious. No, they know that it is conscious. It's been
well, if you just think about ancient peoples and what they believe. Now, I'm not saying that they were right or nothing, but all the way from like Akhenaten to others believe that you had to sun gaze in order to relay your prayers to the creator or the god. And if, let's say, and I don't want to hurt nobody's feelings, we know that our sun um, dies for 3 days on the southern crux in the sky, coming up here on the 22nd of December. And it stays in the same arc for the 22nd, the 23rd, and the 24th. And after 3 days, it's resurrected and it starts coming back and getting higher in the sky on the 25th. And when you intertwine, religions with real things that you see in the sky, it becomes much more powerful. In that way, you can literally say the Son of God dies on the cross for 3 days and then is resurrected on the 25th when we celebrate Christmas. And we all know pretty much that that holiday is arranged in that spot mainly because people already celebrated the winter solstice for probably thousands of years before that. But specifically, and then you have Passover, right? Passover, the day in the northern hemisphere when the sun passes directly overhead. All of these are tied to real events. But if you think about, God being the creator or whatever you want to call it, the programmer, whatever, you would think
architect of
that,
the universe.
right, you would think that these suns in an electric universe are of major importance. And the activity, that happens on that sun is directly related to us, living here. And I think that's why, the world is abruptly changing their food stance, not just their geopolitical stance or who they're allied with, but where food goes where right now. I've been seeing it everywhere. And that's why our government is trying to lock down major partners like India by giving them, access to jobs because we import a lot of stuff from India. So that's one of the main reasons. So we kind of did a buy-in, a currency exchange with Argentina. Basically, you could call it a bailout if you want, but it was more like a buy-in in stock to Argentina. And then, the week following that announcement, then we tell you that we're going to be buying a bunch of their beef. They leave out that we've been moving our train infrastructure to South America, on the west coast of South America, specifically from Peru um, and Bolivia and Argentina. We're sending our engines, our engineers, the old engineers from the old style trains. Because if you live in the US, you know that we've never been on the train thing. We've never really built bullet trains or none of that stuff. We kind of just kept using the old style engine and transportation. But now that that can be driven by AI, literally, and all of the other transports are changing, the need for feeding people is becoming less of an importance for governments around the world.
The Fed's out of options, rate cuts, money printing, balance sheet reversals. They call it policy, but it's really panic. This is the end game economics, where hope replaces discipline and the illusion of control finally breaks. They're not cutting rates because things are strong, they're cutting rates because the system is cracking. The labor market's stalling, confidence in the dollar is fading fast. For decades, the Fed built a house of paper. Now they're striking the match that could burn it down, leaving you to pay the price. Every cycle ends the same: bubbles, bailouts, and broken retirements. That's why smart investors are moving to what's real: gold and silver. When's the last time you actually held the wealth you've spent your life working for? My friends at Noble Gold Investments have been helping Americans move from paper wealth into real, tangible assets. Numbers on a screen can disappear, but physical gold and silver, that's lasted through every single crisis in history. Go to 2030gold.com and get your free wealth protection kit today. That's 2030gold.com. Click on that link in the description box below and discover how easy it is to protect your future. And for this holiday season, when you open a qualified account with Noble Gold Investments, you'll receive 10 1-ounce commemorative silver holiday coins, limited edition, and a joyful way to celebrate the season and invest in something real. I might disagree. I'm going to say it's still got to be the most important because hungry people riot uncontrollably. So, at least for now, while this number of people remains, that is going to be food priority for that. But as you can see with the digital rationing cards and the direction we're going, food's going to be tightly controlled.
Right.
Just saying, which dovetails right into what you were talking about.
And would you trust if there was a food shortage or a supply chain disruption? Can you trust real human drivers to get there to the place that they're going, without getting robbed or maybe making a deal with somebody, or maybe even just driving the food to a second seller on the black market and say that they got robbed? We know in the past couple of years that trains have been being robbed and trucks have been being robbed at an exponential rate. And they have an answer for this, and it's to switch over this whole infrastructure to remove people out of the equation. Yes, the food is important in the short term, but what I mean is slowly as the population reduces, energy in the form of electricity becomes more important than growing crops of food because you have less and less people to feed. Now, if you think that these guys are
That's it.
altruistic and they're nice and they're planning a future with all of, 10 billion, 11 billion. No, they're not. They're planning it for a much smaller number with a complete lockdown system that's controlled from the top down. And all of these services, especially the transport right here, they're going to be building this over in the United States and putting this here according to them. So this is where was it? Norway, I think. But anyway, they're building it over here and they're talking about how all of the other companies that were in competition, they're going bust, bankrupt, they're going out of business, which is consolidating the companies that control the AI and the devices that the AI runs down to a few companies. And those companies are major partners with governments, just like this is. And they're going to
And
be
just
building this
before
over here.
you have to realize this is the last try to capture humanity as our vibration is rising in the planetary, our whole entire solar system is becoming more energized and just more vibratory ascending as we come into this change in the sun. And also it affects our planet here. Magnetic field is declining just tremendously, changes on the sun, we're seeing it solar system wide. Every planet's having effects with its climate and everything else, every planet. So it stems from the magnetism of the sun rising out in a different frequency field, literally not being woo woo at all, but the frequency that was set for these systems to hold us in place for the last 200 years can't hold state anymore. The vibration as you feel, the whole entire system is becoming more energized. Hence, that control system doesn't work. That's why they're setting up an entirely new one at breakneck speed because they know if they don't get it in place, we're just going to hopscotch ahead in the frequency moving upward, and they're like that we missed that chance to grow. This is the last chance they have to try to lock down humanity because our frequency, our vibration is rising out of that density or that iron thickness that they controlled with the evil. The reason I bring that up is I want to thank Chase and those guys for supporting us because as I saw here to start the second hour, anything having to do with hemp or CBD is now going to be illegal as of the end of, well, there's different dates that they're supposing on it, but it's coming up quick. Like, this is what I didn't like is they built up an entire industry for 5 or 10, I'm going to say about 10 years, maybe longer, just like they did with Airbnb. They brought all these people up and had all these livelihoods and and everything, and then they just crashed the market, completely crashed it. Like, people's livelihoods had been built into this. Their whole, lives for 10, 12, 15 years getting into this space, understanding Maha, what are you doing? Like, just so many benefits with, CBD and hemp oils and all the materials from hemp and like the oils for lubricants that we use through the ages and fiber. And there's like an enormous amount of things. Even the seed is a pure protein, like hemp hearts that you can get. You can order those on Amazon. But I just don't get it how this is even possible in today's age, because really the experimentation was going from one subset of the hemp parts moving over into the building material part. Now this is where it got really interesting is if they could have got the oil out of it. You're thinking about growing the seediest bud you possibly can because you want to get the most incredible oil. So that's a biodiesel oil, but it's an oil that's not harmful. Like, get rid of the ethanol, man. Go to the diesel itself, but use hemp oil. I mean, we use that pre-World War II. There's so many known uses for this in the just in the industrial space. Health space is something to industrial space. I cannot believe that they're going back to this type of prohibition. It really shocks me. I mean, I'm beyond words. Like, we come all the way to this point, and really, that's going to get pulled back. Something's very, very wrong here. And I got some hand cream here too. I wanted to show you this. Like, if you're coming up into wintertime, I can't get that to autofocus. I'm too close. Autofocus. There you go.
There it is.
It is so rich, creamy, and thick. Like, anywhere you got like windburn or something like that, chap, whatever it might be, this cream is amazing. So again, just in another year, this will be illegal to sell this. And I don't know about grandfathering it in, like, yo, bro, I bought this when it was legal. Your hand cream's illegal. Under the letter of the law, this hand cream next year will be illegal to manufacture and sell. The hell are they doing? That's insane, man. That's really insane. Excuse me for going off on a little
I think it's
repeating tangent, but that's insane. How can we go that far back?
I don't really think it's about the hemp industry specifically. That's where they want to start.
All right, what do you
And
think it is?
well, I think they're going to go after the leftist states that legalized marijuana next. Once they get this bill, passed and signed, which, by the way, they snuck it into this reopening the government. But yeah, it makes absolutely no sense that we would crush a $28 billion industry unless you were trying to remove the money from specific people that are getting the money. Now, I know for a fact in some of the companies that sell not the hemp products, but the legal marijuana, they're all leftist companies. They dump their money back into leftist politicians who then try to and there's been a whole scandal about laundering money with cartel and all kinds of weird stuff here in New Mexico specifically. But as far as the other states go, it really makes no sense, the whole idea. But it's a cash crop that was making more money illegally than it was legally. But this whole idea about the hemp industries, there's really only a couple of industries that compete with the hemp industry. That'd be medical companies, that'd be petroleum companies that make some of the similar products that you can make with hemp. And also, I'm sure you've
Lumber
seen,
companies,
yeah, that's where I was about to
forestry
go next.
products.
I'm sure you've seen the hemp cinder blocks and different things that are fireproof. They get harder over time. They're great insulators, and your house won't burn down if you live, I don't know, in California or someplace. You wouldn't have a problem. There's a guy from in the 90s when they had a real bad fire there in Santa Ana, winds burned up the whole neighborhoods. I showed this one night on one of my shows. He was the only house standing, and everybody was laughing at him and talking, a lot of trash about the products and stuff that he was using. So he built his house with completely inflammable products, the shingles, the drywall, everything on it. So when everybody else's house burned down and was gone down to the foundation, he came, got the water hose and started washing the soot off of his home. So, and it goes into a broader thing about insurance and why do we keep allowing failed ideas to continue. Like, every time we have a hurricane, every time we have major flooding, you see infrastructure being destroyed. I'm sure you saw that big, all of those people on the internet bragging about how great communism was because they built that big old nice bridge in China and then it collapsed. It's already toasted.
Now
But what else?
wait a second, Ransom. I was saying that in addition to when this magnetic anomaly / disturbance / event arrived, one of the telltale signs would be The top 2 miles of the crust of our Earth is going to begin to pull and twist in different ways unseen before, at least well in the last couple of 100 years. So
Right.
bridges would begin to decouple from their banks. Go back in many of my video prior, I said I was the exact to the decouple from their banks. That's exactly what it is. Like the earth is rifting and starting to move more on the like, especially in these, like, think about the top in that gorge where it was, that was fixed, but that land had pulled apart enough where that came detached or decoupled from that and rolled back in. We're going to see, and we have seen hundreds of these bridges all over the world happening like this. And this is just another sign. Now, what happens if it does across the Mississippi and it takes down 3 bridges at one event? And then suddenly you're left with like 2 bridges going way up near Illinois somewhere. The entire southern coast is completely cut off. You have to go all the way up to Illinois and all the way back just to go across the river that you can see over in like Louisiana or something, or across over in Tennessee from Arkansas. We got to go like 800 miles out of the way to go back. I can wave at you. I'll see you in a few days. That kind of thing.
This is the battle of the billions, right? And that's kind of what I was alluding to with the attack in the hemp industry, because you're helping other industries on top of that. So California has a campaign that they're going to introduce the first of its kind billionaire tax. So let's, play this out in thought here. What happens? All the billionaires leave California, an already collapsing, close to a failed state. They don't bring in near enough money for the amount of taxes that they're trying to get out of people. And then they keep doing dirty things like, they have a wildfire, they rezone the area. They have flooding, they rezone the area. What do? They kick out people in the upper middle class that would be the people that run businesses, hire employees, those kind of things. Why would they stay if they're taxed to oblivion? They can't rebuild their homes or businesses. And even the people that, maybe they work for up on the upper echelon, the billionaires, they're not there anymore. They've moved to Texas. They've moved to Tennessee. They've moved wherever they can get a tax
Archington,
break.
best.
So, I mean, we're seeing the battle of the billionaires. That's what it is. It's the government trying to put their clamps in, and it's happening on both sides of the aisle, as you can see. The Republicans have their own targets. The Democrats have their own targets. Everybody's playing this. Where are we going to get our new source of income? So if they cut off the U.S. aid, or USAID is how they kept saying it. It was U.S. aid, obviously. But for some
USAID, yeah.
reason, they would keep saying it different. It was kind of like when Obama used to say ISIL instead of ISIS, so that the common man would be
Confuse you
confused.
on purpose.
Are we talking
BlackRock,
about a new group?
Blackstone.
Right. They do
No,
all
it's
that
a
on purpose.
confuser.
What do you think?
Now, wait, let me stop you there. Now, you got to think, if even if you extorted, let's say 100 billionaires that are there in California, 100, there's probably around 100. Let's say 100 billionaires, and you give them a billionaire's tax. Big whoop, you got an extra $100 billion. No, you wouldn't, because the billionaire wouldn't be a billionaire if you took a billion from each of the from each of the 100 billionaires. So you can only take millions off of them. A couple 100 million, maybe 100 million. I mean, just with 100, that's only 10 billion extra. Like, that's not going to do piddly squat there for the services they're offering.
Right. Besides that, even if you only made $10 an hour and somebody said they're going to come along and take $4 from every $10 you make, why would you go to work? I
Well,
mean,
then
really.
added in California is probably 5, and if you're living in somewhere like, say, Sweden, it's $6 out of every 10.
And you kind of see what
But
I
you give
was talking about the EBT, that they would wait till right after they got a couple seats in the election. I said that they would do
yeah,
that,
last week for sure you were talking about it.
and then they were going to bargain like they always do to open it up, as long as they get some kind of concession. And I'm wondering whose concession attacking the hemp industry was. Which side of the aisle? It really doesn't matter in the end. The whole point is, why would you shoot yourself in the foot or cut your nose off to spite your face when you have that many billions rolling in on products that help people? They can feed people, they can house people. I mean, you're taking one of the best tools off the market. It doesn't make any sense unless someone else with competing technologies doesn't like that. And, I can point my finger at a couple, but I really think that that's what's about to happen too, is they're going to have a federal crackdown on legal marijuana in the left states. That would be New Mexico, Colorado, California, Oregon, Washington. I forget the other ones, DC, right around DC, stuff like that.
Virginia. in Ohio.
Yeah, they all have either medical marijuana bills on it, and they keep taking polls that show like 70% of the population is okay with that. They don't mind that. They're okay with alcohol. There's no problem with alcohol. But you've seen how the government, at different times, depending on who's in charge and who they want to fleece for money, they do these prohibition things over and over again. Now, I'm
Yeah,
not
no, wait a second, stop it. Now you just boom, light bulb came on.
yeah,
If that's the prohibition thing, is that they're always going prohibition, and through time that has had value, like distilling your own alcohol after you have a fruit crop,
right.
growing your own. Like those are the two things. Have you noticed that through history, routinely, it seems like those two are always, even from the 1600s, man. Yeah, everybody always alcohol anything at any kind of really weird, rough time. People like alcohol more.
Oops.
Weed too. Think about how many greenhouses have been put out during this. I'm talking just in the United States. How much greenhouse infrastructure had been constructed and built into mega farms beneath, without the sunlight, impervious to any weather. Like, think about the amount of greenhouses built in the last 10 years just for this industry alone, in addition to regular agriculture. So, going on to the robotic theme of things, would it be easier to train a robot to go in a field of dirt where it rains, it's muddy, or would it be easier to train a robot to be in a pre existing facility that just got raided or put out of business? Because a greenhouse is a greenhouse. You can tweak the water system and nutrient content and soil medium, whatever you like, for any plant. But the space is there, the watering system's there, the lights are there to grow any plant at all. You just need to tweak it a little bit. And with the different types of programmable LEDs these days, you can get that nanometer wavelength to anywhere you want it for any species. Right. So imagine if they put all this out of business, how many like pennies on the dollar greenhouses will be for sale. Like, you got to think, if you're going to substitute part of a food source, because like you said, it gets too late. There's the anomalies. There's jet streams are weird. The aurora coming down, electrified atmosphere. Nothing is done. Now it's 95 degrees on January 1st, but July 1st it's below freezing again. It's back down to 22 degrees in July. Like you get those types of twists. Year without a summer type things, volcanic eruptions. You're going to want the greenhouses. Like, there is just a staggering amount of greenhouses out there. Staggeringly. How many hundreds of millions of square feet of greenhouse do you think we have here in the US just because of the hemp industry?
That's the majority of the way that they grow things here in the Southwest, obviously, because it gets too hot and too dry, and then you have pests and stuff. So it's a lot easier to grow in these big grow buildings. There's one literally right down the street from me, and it glows at night. And this might be, the future of the way things are in a low magnetic field. And not only that, I was going to ask you what your thoughts are on this. Let me see here.
Yeah, they're going to steal those people's greenhouses. Damn, you shysters. That's low. It's seedy. It's like evil. That's what it is.
Right,
These
don't worry.
people put their life savings into a thing that was supposed to be stable from this point forward, tricked them into using their life savings to start these businesses, and then you pull that out from under them. There's really, like, evil is such a light word to use for that. I mean, I don't think there are enough words in all languages on the planet to describe that level of depravity and just.
Well, think about it this way. The majority of commercial real estate and houses are being sold to corporations, not to individual people or small companies. So, where do you think all those greenhouses will go? And, I don't know, would you think maybe there might be government subsidies to grow specific crops in there afterwards, considering that we're about to have a grain and food warfare through the economy? And then this idea, if you have a low magnetic field, and you're having burps off the sun every so often that start destroying power plants and starting fires and stuff. What have we seen in the past 5 years just go up in flames? Chicken plants, pork plants, beef plants, the beef out in the
Potato.
field itself. Um,
Yeah, the potato plant burnt down. Like, dude, potatoes smother stuff. Like, yeah, the potato plant burnt. Well, like, you're talking hundreds and hundreds of tons of potatoes got burned so bad everything turned into ash. Like, how do you get a potato to turn into ash, let alone hundreds of tons of potatoes to turn into ash? Like, something's off.
And we've been doing this this is the whole funny thing is there have been a lot of people arguing online about whether or not countries are capable of shooting a laser or a microwave beam to start a fire. In the early 90s, the US military was bragging that we could melt a motor block in an enemy's vehicle from a C 130. Now, those were obsolete systems. Now, this kind of technology is being played with by the local universities. So you can imagine what Big Brother and other governments around the world have hidden. And now they're starting to brag about it. And they might be starting to brag about it as a bluff on one end or maybe a real threat on the other end. Because I read a paper from the Air Force Times, I believe it was. It's got to be going on about 7-8 years ago, where it talked about that they were converting the Air Force into concentrating on particle beams, particle weapons, lasers, microwave beams, and putting it mounted on vehicles, trains, planes, and automobiles.
Well, wait a
Oops,
second. You're
wrong
talking,
button.
that's a delivery system that's at the speed of light, non-detectable. A laser or some sort of particle beam like that, you're moving at the speed of light, non-detectable. So
Yeah,
imagine
forget it.
the weapon system advantage on that thing. Like it's already like whoosh,
It's like forget about these ideas like HARP and stuff like that. There's way
and
more
missiles
advanced
and things.
stuff going on. That's just a minor topic. So you can imagine that if we go to start talking about events that happened or other theories out there, that you are not going to get a non-biased answer. You're going to get the establishment answer, whatever that may be. So you can't trust these things. And
I was looking for Enoch.ai, which is Mike Adams' site, Brighteon.tv and Brighteon.com. Mike Adams, Health Ranger, he started his own unbiased GPT AI agent slash protocol platform. It's called Enoch, like the book of Enoch.ai. Ransom, to see if you could pull it up. But when I put that in my computer, that's when everything just slowed down with our conversations. You were asking, are you online? I just tried to put in Enoch.ai and it tweaked my computer, which is interesting. It's an unbiased one, mainly focused on medical information. Um, because right now there's so much censorship with an enormous amount of things that had happened. So Mike had trained it on every video through the Brighteon.tv archives, going all the way back on like hundreds of thousands of videos about people of truth telling their version of truth. You can ask it about 9/11. You can ask it about anything, and it'll give you the truth. It won't mask it. Yeah, so I appreciate Mike putting that because he allowed me to use all my Adapt 2030 channel videos as a training agent for this inside their Enoch AI to talk about everything I've ever talked about and the way I'd seen it. And every graph that was presented in all my videos was screenshotted and indexed. So anything I was showing about solar activity, solar cycles, rise and fall of civilizations, cold periods, warm periods, repeating multi-site, going back 15,000 years, 30,000 years, 40,000, 45,000, all those thousand, I have literally 2,000 videos. They used a catalog in there and said that's a packet of this person's mind and information about how the climate is, why it's changing. I'll plug that into the AI and run with it. So anything you ask about grand solar minimum, I'm super happy to have contributed to in Enoch. And again, he was pulling podcasts from everywhere, millions and millions of sources of information on truth side of things, and also any medical information that you want to ask in there. It seems to be uncensored. And also any types of world events seems to be uncensored. And that's the way he wants it. So it is a place to go to where if you want to get the real information about a real event. So Ransom, I'm interested if you put, tell us really what happened at 9/11 in that thing and see how it comes out, or what really happened at XYZ event that we've been told as, and see what it would do. Yeah. Well, what really happened with 9/11?
they need to work on their full screen thing. It's hard to
Yeah.
scroll
Ask
it.
about building 7 and see what it says about building 7. You can type in any question. What happened to building 7?
All right. What happened to building 7?
Yeah, we'll see how true this is. Mike, don't let us down with this. That was a building that was not remotely close to either tower, and they said pull it, and then when it came down in one of those controlled demolition explosion, very similar looking type of events. Official narratives.
Yeah, just by scanning that, I saw a bunch of stuff. Lack of fires, lack of plane.
Yeah, right.
According to the 9/11, commission here, it collapsed due to fires on several floors. But that was the rewrite. If you
It
read
was the
the
rewrite. There was none. When you saw that live feed, and I'd seen a ton of videos, just smoke coming out of the windows. There was no like visible flame. It was like really fires trying to maybe get going in there, but they didn't have enough oxygen. It was just like that black smoke pouring out, like carpet and stuff smoldering, whatever. There was no visible flame coming out of there,
well, not
which is
only that, they had a countdown there. They said it collapsed live on TV before it collapsed. But the original reason that the government gave for Building 7, it was just plainly the events of 9/11. Like it just got depressed because the other buildings fell down. So, it decided to fall down too because of the events of 9/11. So
well,
they had to
everybody had
switch
to
that.
agree unanimously on that. Now, if you didn't know about that 9/11 report, everybody had to agree 100% unanimously about the fact. If one person disagreed out of that entire panel, that fact was thrown out.
Right.
That's the insane thing about it. 100% unanimous agreement before it even got pushed into the report. If anybody said no, you wouldn't. It wasn't included. This is a collapse. Yeah, the free fall speed was the thing, and evidence of explosions. Like if you put that into ChatGPT, you won't get the same answer.
No, you can ask Chat GPT, why is there thermite residue still found on the outside patina of buildings in New York City, and it ain't going to tell you why.
It'll say, "Wow, there was in the 1930s when the Hindenburg exploded." So
Yeah, it's like there's so many of those things that you could really get into it with the AI, but I have experience with it. Like I said, it will argue with you until you give up, until you finally go away. Now, Grok, when you get it into a corner, it'll finally agree with you, but then you could go back 30 minutes and ask it the same thing, and it'll revert to the original information that it fed you. You can make it agree with you for just you. But like I said, I don't think that they are allowing it to remember arguments in the way that once it comes to a conclusion that it can't get around, a fact wall, a logic wall, it resets. It doesn't just take that and go, you know what, the algorithm's different now because it got new information, but instead it resorts to its previous, prompts that tell you how to explain something on there, which is really messed up because we're moving into this whole idea where every kind of media is going to be AI. You're not even going to have like me and David up here anymore. Even YouTube admits that they're trying to go over to a full AI model where the shows, even the podcasters, all of that are AI generated podcasters about topics that they get. And what are they going to be about? Baking cookies or kittens, kitten calendars. It'll never be any kind of real information that you get. So, even the days of conspiracy theorists, whether they were right or wrong about any topic, that was the fun years of YouTube. When you could get on and you could hear people, babble BS, or maybe they were onto something, and then you caught onto it and you do your own research on it. Those days are gone.